guys, welcome to the first tour breakdown that I've ever done. So I thought that I wanted to actually break down how the summer tour went rather than just do a short little video like we usually do with a few memories in. So I'm basically going to go through every date and try and see how much I remember of what happened on tour. So let's begin, shall we? First show, if you don't include the two festival shows we played at the start, the first show was actually up at Ivory Blacks in Glasgow. But before we did that, we had to do a lot of this. So luckily it was quite sunny on the drive up there, which was quite nice. But for some reason, even though the rest of the UK that we drive through was really sunny and warm, the minute we got to Glasgow, it just started absolutely bucketing it down with rain. So yeah, it was very wet loading, but we got everything there. It's only our second time we'd ever played in Glasgow actually, so it's all relatively new to us, the city. We didn't really sort of recognise it that well, and there's a lot of one-way systems in Glasgow, so it's a bit of a nightmare for driving actually. But we got there eventually and started setting all the gear up, and what became obvious straight away was that the sound engineer, bless him, I think he'd been thrown in the deep end a little bit and he was struggling a little bit. Drowning is probably a better way of putting it. But luckily for him, obviously, there were a couple of sound engineers on hand, and me and Raj, mostly Raj actually, helped him out through the night and got there in the end basically. And it was a good gig. It was a good one to start off the sort of the main bulk of the tour with. And it was a gig for a promoter we love playing for, a guy called Duncan, Red Cross Promotion. So that was really good. And we got to meet some new bands and just generally start to establish ourselves more in Glasgow. Slightly weird thing at the end of it was that the accommodation that was put on for us that night was like some sort of guest house. It was in the middle of nowhere, and it was the only way I can describe it is it kind of looked like somewhere that your nan would live, like all the rooms did anyway, and so we had some fun there. So then the next day we drove to Edinburgh and we were playing at a place called Legends, which actually used to be called Opium. We've played it a couple of times before and it's always been a good show there. And to be honest with you, Edinburgh is starting to feel like home anyway, so we kind of know our way around the city, and we enjoyed just sort of walking around it basically before we had the show. So that was good. And the sound engineer remembered us, and he's a really good sound engineer, so we were already up, so that was cool. And we played with some bands, especially one band that I want to mention, which was a younger band that we played with. I think it was their first gig. They were really cool. They were kind of doing sort of grungy covers, but loads of potential, and it was great to chat to them after the show. And yeah, so Edinburgh, good as always. And the accommodation after Edinburgh wasn't exactly amazing. It was we were staying in a hostel. And we'd never actually done that before, even though we've done lots and lots of touring. We've never actually stayed in a hostel before, put on by the promoter. And let's just say we probably won't do it again. I mean, 10 people crammed into a room that is probably the size of your normal hotel room. It wasn't the one, and I don't think any of us got much sleep that night. So the next day we left pretty early and basically moved on. And the next day was actually an interesting one because it was technically a rest day. So we had a day off between that and what was supposed to be our next show, which was Bradford. So we were driving to Newcastle, and so we did more of this. And then eventually when we got there, as almost the same way that when we got to Glasgow, it just absolutely bucketed it down with rain, and we were staying in this travel lodge. And yeah, I mean, we kind of ended up getting there around the same time that you get to a gig, and it was a kind of a strange sensation of like, normally now we'd be setting up, loading our gear in, but there's nothing to do in the hotel room except drink lots of beer. I mean, yeah, we drank a lot of beer, and things got a bit, you know, crazy like they do, like when you're on tour and you've got nothing to do. But unfortunately, what ended up happening then when we were at the hotel is that we got the bad news. And as some of you will know, we had to actually like cancel our next few dates of the tour and basically rush home from Newcastle because of a family emergency. It just can't be helped. I mean, we don't seem to be having much luck on tours recently. There's always something external that comes in and affects it. But luckily, it was only a few dates that we had to miss. And we came back and everything's fine now. And we're ready to resume the tour. So the next show, technically, after those that we couldn't play, was Beastfest, which was for a promoter we played for before, Stuart, and it's in Gravesend, so we did more of this. Kind of an all-dayer thing, so there's lots of people there, some familiar faces there, and we were headlining it, so unfortunately that kind of means you have to wait around a really long time. It's one of those kind of things where a lot of people were drunk there, and also, lo and behold, who do we spot walking around? Greg from Reading, and he's there, and he actually has his own nickname within the band. We call him the Gregular because he so regularly comes to our gigs. So that was good to see Greg. It was nice to see a bit of like Reading in Gravesend, and I think he'd been drinking all day. So yeah, it was he was quite drunk by that point. And then we played a cool show, and actually we got some really cool footage of it. I'm gonna share a complete song of it with the Patreons, but I'm going to show you a little clip of it now. When we saw the guy filming that, he was just literally filming it on his phone, and we were really surprised at the quality of the video that came out of that. So yeah, we were quite impressed with that, and it was a good memory to have of Beast Fest. So then we had a couple of rest days, and then the next big bit of the tour was Plymouth. Now, we haven't played in Plymouth for a while, so you kind of forget how long a drive it is actually. So we drove all the way to Plymouth. And then when we got there, it was really cool because we met up with Alex from Cybernetic Witch Cult, who we hadn't seen for ages. So it was really good to catch up with him. And we'd actually played in the venue before, the Underground, when we'd actually played a festival that he'd put on called End of the World Festival. So it was good to reminisce about that kind of stuff. And we got to meet a band called Green Elephant as well, who'd put the show on, and they're really nice guys. And they actually let us stay in their house afterwards, so that was really cool. So Plymouth was definitely, and we were on our way back up again. And then the next day, we drove from Plymouth. It was a very sunny day, I remember it. We drove from Plymouth to Bournemouth. Now, the cool thing about the Bournemouth show at the Anvil was that it was already sold out because we were supporting a band called Avon, which actually has the drummer from Caius and from some of the early Queens of the Stone Age stuff. So that gig had sold out completely. And it's always kind of cool going along to a gig knowing that it's sold out, because as a front man, I'm like, there's a certain way that I'm going to work with a sold out crowd that I wouldn't with a crowd where there are less people. And so I knew I was going to go in hard, and it was a really, really, really good gig. It was like, I mean, I would say that there are 3 of my favourite shows on the tour, and that was one of the 3 favourite shows. It was just like the audience were reacting to everything, and also because they were there to see the headliners, the guy from Caius, they were into the kind of music, but some of them hadn't seen us before, so I really worked the crowd, and it was really good fun. And we also saw our friends from Dead Lettuce who supported as well. That was good to catch up with those guys. It's always good to see people again on tour. And who did we find in the crowd? Greg again. So there you go. That was the second gig that we saw Greg at, and we had a good old chat with him afterwards as well. So yeah, Bournemouth was great. And then we scooted on home for a day off, and then our next show was the Deco in Portsmouth. Now, we played Portsmouth, we realised, like, probably as many times as we played Southampton, and like, so it's getting on like 15 times, so it's one of those other coastal towns that we've played a lot, and we kind of established a fan base there, so we always feel welcome in Portsmouth, and it was always a good show at the Deco. We've played there a few times for Icebreaker Festival, so yeah, that was a really cool show. By this stage of the tour, sort of the madness is starting to set in a little bit, that's all I'll say, and the sort of the cumulative tiredness that you get when you're touring, which is like just from drinking lots, not eating enough, and not getting enough sleep. But yeah, it was a really good show, so that was fun times. And so then we came back from Portsmouth, and then the next show was Reading. Yeah, definitely one of my favourite shows. I always love playing the Swamp anyway. It's like coming home, and because we only play it every 3 or 4 months now, it's like it's built up to quite a big event, but this one was a particularly good one. The energy was really high in the room, especially like the front row of people were just like really giving all the energy back to me, and I was working them up into a frenzy. There was a crazy mosh. It was just everything you want from a gig, really, especially a hometown show. So I absolutely loved the Reading show, and yeah, it was really cool. Oh, missed out Cardiff. Oops. Okay, so yeah, we had played Cardiff. Cardiff was just before the Portsmouth show. Cardiff was really good, actually. I'm obviously doing this the wrong way around, but it doesn't matter. Again, Greg showed up. That's like the third show that he was at, which is absolutely insane. But a really cool thing happened as well, actually. There's someone called Jess, and she's the lead singer in Mammoth We Wizard Bastard, and she was actually in the venue next door to the venue we were playing, and she was watching, I think, blues or jazz or something, and she could hear through the walls some big riffs, as she put it, and so she convinced her boyfriend to basically come through, and lo and behold, it's Morass Of Molasses playing on stage, and we've met before when we've played shows with Mammoth We Wizard Bastard. So all of a sudden I look out in the crowd and there's Jess in the crowd, and it was awesome. It was great to see her, and it just so happened that I was wearing her t-shirt, which is this t-shirt, at the time as well, and that was the first time I'd worn it, and she'd made this t-shirt, so there was a lot of strange synchronicity going on there. But yeah, Cardiff was a really great show, and can't wait to go back, actually. Really liked Cardiff. Yeah, so I think that's about it, actually. So, I mean, I probably missed some stuff out, but I'm babbling now, doesn't matter. The tour was great in general. I had some real actual high moments, and there were some lower moments as well, as there always going to be on tour, but generally speaking, I really enjoyed the tour, and I think the other guys did too. It was hard work, like they always are, but it's why we do this, and it's why when you go out there and you meet up with those people that you only see on tour again, it just makes everything worth it. And everybody's really excited about the new album. Everybody was congratulating us about getting signed to Ripple, so there's a lot of positive vibes, and basically, as you can probably predict, I just can't wait to do it again. We haven't got any touring before the end of the year, but we have got 3 one-off shows, so they're going to be good, and they'll keep things turning over. And yeah, so I guess I'll do another one of these tour breakdown after the next tour. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.